All right, so Meghna, welcome to my channel, Sonal from USA, and my
Thank you.
channel is
Thank you
more
for having me.
focused about people coming here for education to guide them in different fields. How to take admissions for MS, PhD, and In last vlog, we talked to Meghna to understand about her MS in environmental engineering, and in this vlog, she's going to take us through her steps, how to apply and go about PhD step-by-step guide. So this is a very detailed vlog, so don't miss a moment, and she's really going to guide us through the step-by-step process about how to find the PhD subjects, professors, and everything that you want to know. So keep watching. Over to you, Meghna.
So, hello everyone. My name is Meghna. I am currently a PhD student in environmental engineering, and the eventual goal was to work in a place like World Health Organization or UN Environment Program.
All right. So I wanted to check about your work experience, how it was. If you can share that little bit, how was working experience with NGO? Is it like a
Sure.
typical comparable NGO because you worked in India? People think about working in NGO in India versus US. So just share that experience and comparison a little bit. So it's a different perspective for people.
Sure. So the place I worked at in India was quite a big organization, and I wouldn't say it's an NGO. It's kind of a educational institute, like a management education institute, which some consults for the government. So whereas this one where I worked at was completely a non-profit, and they've been around in the industry for many years. 25 years, I think they recently celebrated. But they are a very small group of people, so around 7 people. And they are actually their main function as an organization is to fund research in solid waste management. So almost more than half of the staff there were PhDs in environmental, and they were very knowledgeable about the emerging issues in environment and energy. And because their focus was on solid waste management, it was mostly focused on their whole vision and mission is to fund research in universities in the US and Canada, where students want to research on solid waste. So they provide a lot of grants and research money to do that. And there were a lot of collaborations with civil and environmental companies who are on their board. So yeah, that's their main function. And I got to do some field work as well. Got to learn some data analysis. And my supervisor was actually very helpful in helping me understand what would be a good research area for my PhD. And she also, before coming here, she was at the Environmental Protection Agency in DC. So she was very aware of what were going to be the new emerging problems in environmental management. So in that way, it was a great learning experience. The reason I wanted to do a PhD was because I wanted to be in a position where in the future I can lead a team that was conducting research. So I wanted to be the team lead of a research team. And the eventual goal was to work in a place like World Health Organization or UN Environment Program, where they take up large projects which require a lot of subject matter expertise. And also expertise in understanding policy and how that affects like the last chain of command. So you're implementing it at the global level. How does it affect villages in India?
You have very high goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that for that I realized that PhD is important,
Mm-hmm.
and I also wanted to be involved in more complex projects and challenge myself to learn new tools and new concepts and be able to apply them.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, learn how to take a project from start to end. And actually, this is something that I couldn't do in my masters. Also, that was a motivation to do a PhD.
So PhD is a
And
long process. So after masters, how, I mean, not many people think about PhD. So how did you think about PhD? I understand your goals, but I know it's a long
yeah,
process. So you have to be kind of mentally prepared. And how did you go
yeah,
about it exactly? Because it's a difficult process to apply, get the mentor, and many times I find that people do not find the right mentors and guides for
yeah,
the PhD, and they can't pursue it. So
yeah.
how did you go about the whole process? Did you get any guidance?
I did. So my fiance is currently doing his PhD, and a lot of my friends, when I was working in North Carolina for this 1 year, they were also PhD students. So I got a lot of advice from them,
Mm-hmm.
and both my supervisors at work, who also did PhDs, they put me in touch with a lot of professors whom they knew,
Okay.
so that I can talk to them. I actually met a few professors like that, and I didn't get into those universities for many reasons,
Mm-hmm.
but I eventually did end up talking to around 5 or 6 professors whose work that I thought I would be interested in, and this one worked out actually through LinkedIn. The current one that I got, she posted something on LinkedIn, and I have. So before that, I have to say that by this time I lost interest in the whole water and sanitation space, because
Mm-hmm.
that involves a lot of microbiology and biotechnology, which I was not interested in studying.
Okay.
But I was still interested in water pollution and organic chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And my current professor at George Mason, she's working in exactly this.
Okay.
So I either wanted to do this or continue working in solid waste management
Mm-hmm.
and find a PhD in that.
Okay.
So I was applying to places which did either of these kind of research,
Okay.
and I got into this program.
I was asking you is about how did you go about this PhD thing?
Yeah,
Because it is not easy to find, like a professor who would
yeah,
guide you and mentor you for the
yeah,
PhD program. And
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit
yeah.
about the fee structure, how it works exactly. So if you can just take step by step, as an MS student, if I have come here and if I have to apply for a PhD, how would you go about it?
Sure. So the first thing to do is narrow down on 2 or 3 research topics,
Mm-hmm.
and then look for universities and professors actually who work on these topics. So now the problem with finding a PhD program is it's very different from a master's, in that you can't just apply to any university that offers environmental engineering,
Okay.
because kind of specialization you want depends on the professor's interest, and
Okay.
not the fact that environmental is being offered by the university.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, some universities, some environmental departments have a large focus on air pollution, some have on energy, some have on water. So you need to just Googling top 10 environmental programs won't help you.
Okay.
So you need to actually spend time looking at each professor's website,
Mm-hmm.
their LinkedIn, their publications,
Mm-hmm.
the number of students they have. So I reached out to professors, and then I spoke to their students also
Okay.
to find out what kind of topics they were researching and how long they think they would be conducting this research, and when do they expect to graduate, how the uh, advising style of the professor is like.
Mm-hmm.
Are they more hands-on, hands-off? So all these are tips that I got from my fiance and friends
Wow.
who were pursuing PhDs already. So those are the questions to ask. The main reason for me wanting to do a PhD is because I felt like I didn't know enough about my field at the end of my master's,
Okay.
and I really wanted to be in a place where I can be called an expert on something.
Subject matter expert.
and basically be able to take a project from finish to end. So come up with a research idea, find out if it's feasible or not, conduct a few experiments, analyze those results, publish them, and basically go through that entire grind. So what does it take for someone to say that, okay, this chemical is bad for human health? So I wanted to study all of that in much more detail than what I learned in my master's.
So tell me something. When you have to apply after master's for PhD, I'm asking more questions from the student's perspective, and then I will ask about subjects. If I have come here for master's and if I have to apply for a PhD, do I have to appear for a GMAT or something?
No. So generally your GRE scores are valid for 5 years, I think.
Okay.
So the application process is the same as for masters. So you have to write GRE, TOEFL, write your SOPs, get letters of recommendation. All of that is the same.
Oh, okay. So you have to go through this same process again when you apply for PhD.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the advantage is that if you have already done your masters in the US, a lot of professors will waive the requirement of GRE and TOEFL.
Okay.
So you'll only need to submit SOP and LOR. The first thing to do before you even apply is to email the professor and ask if they have funding for a new student.
Okay.
So what happens is sometimes you will apply to the university and your application is being managed by the administration, like the administrative department.
Correct.
But they have to send it to the department that you want to go to. So suppose you want to do civil PhD. You pass through these admission requirements, but then you find out that the professor doesn't have funding. So then there's no point in applying at all.
So can you give more details about this funding? Because normally there is a myth that, PhD also requires a lot of money. And, I know that PhD is normally sponsored by the university. So I wanted you to highlight those more details about it. What do you mean by sponsorship? For somebody who is watching for the first time and thinking about PhD in the back of the mind, you can understand what is it.
So PhD programs, what you get is your tuition is fully paid for by the university. So you shouldn't have to pay tuition fees.
Wow. That's a free program.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of actually citizens here, they join a PhD because it's free of cost. And if they realize they can't do it, then they leave after getting a master's. So you basically got a master's free of cost. Not all universities allow this, but where they do, a lot of people do this.
Okay.
So all your tuition fees are paid for. You will get paid a monthly stipend. This depends on how much funding the professor has. So how much money the professor has. If he has got money for a certain project, you will be hired for that project and you will be paid as a part-time employee.
Okay, understood.
You will be getting the wage of a part-time campus employee. Okay. No tuition you need to pay, and you will get paid a monthly stipend, which is equal to a part-time graduate research assistant stipend.
Okay.
And you will have to pay some minimal administrative fees like course fees and graduate student fee or like payment for the gym and all that. Which is very nominal, and I think it's only once a year or once per semester, and it shouldn't be more than $500 to $600 per year.
Wow. Okay. And how much a person normally gets paid as a part-time student or a research assistant?
The average, I would say, between $1,500 to $2,000.
Okay.
Depending on where you're from. Which university you're going to, where it's located.
Per month.
Per month, yeah.
Okay, which is a very good amount.
You can say,
which is a very good amount to sustain here, to pay off your apartment rent and have groceries. So you may pay a little bit more out of pocket, but other than quite a good amount to sustain here.
You don't need much. It's not. You won't have much savings left at the end of the month, but it's enough for living expenses.
Absolutely. Getting a degree in US is so expensive. So knowing that the PhD comes free, I'm sure there would be a lot of people who would be motivated to apply for the PhD program. So thank you for sharing those details. And you said that every university will not have this sponsorship program. It is different because it depends on the funding that the professor has. So how do you find out exactly which university and which professor has that kind of a funding? How did you go about it? It is not an easy process, I'm sure.
You just ask the professor. So if you are interested in the professor's research, which is the first thing you do before even applying to the college, You email the professor, ask him or her if they have funding to take you in.
Okay.
And if they say no, they are very honest about it, because they don't want to take on students and not pay them, because you'll be doing a lot of work, and it won't be fair for them to take you and not pay you.
Okay.
And generally, if it's a reputed university, they don't take students in if they don't have the money to pay them.
Okay. Okay.
So they will discourage you from applying if they don't have funding. And I've spoken to professors who have liked my profile, but they said they didn't have enough money to fund me as a student, and they don't even foresee any funding in the future. So
wow. Okay. But how did you go about
they will
finding
tell
such
you-
professors who are doing research? I mean, is it available on the university website, or how do you go about it?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I follow a few journals and magazines, and I kind of read up on them regularly, and you can see from there like which university that particular research is coming from.
Okay.
So if you find that you want to do similar research, you go to that university's website, look at the list of professors, and go to each of their website.
Okay. Okay. And then
Yeah.
you find out,
So-
and then you connect with them and understand. So
Yeah.
do professors really entertain even they have not seen you, as a person or a profile, just
Yeah,
based
yeah,
on
they
your
do. So
undergrad? Uh-huh.
That's the thing. So if they have funding, and that means that they are looking for students.
Okay.
So they'll always be looking out in their email for if anyone has emailed them, if somebody is interested. So in case they are looking for that, they will definitely respond. Some professors who are very famous and very established in their field take some time to respond and are more selective in the students they take,
Okay.
which is fine. But you can always email them twice, thrice, not more than thrice, because that means they're not interested in taking you, or they don't have the time to see an email,
Okay.
which both are not great signs.
Okay. So normally PhD
so-
takes how many years to complete?
I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that.
Rough guesstimate,
But,
like 4 years, 5
uh,
years.
I would say a minimum of 4 years.
Okay.
That's what I've been hearing.
Okay.
In engineering, you can take for granted that it'll take at least 4 or 5 years, which is still considered to be less. So in science, pure sciences, it's expected to be even longer,
Wow.
because it's more about discovering new things, whereas engineering is more of application. So you already know what's happening. You're just applying it in a new setting. right?
Okay.
Problems in engineering tend to be more well defined as compared to pure sciences or humanities or arts. So those I knew a history PhD student at Duke who was in his 8th year.
Wow. It's a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So compared to all of those fields, engineering is definitely much shorter.
Okay, I understood. So tell me how a typical day for a PhD student look like, when you're doing a PhD or pursuing a PhD.
Again, so now this is my first semester, right? So it's mostly just a lot of reading. You have to take a few classes also as part of your PhD.
Okay.
So I'm taking 2 classes right now. And other than that, I'm just reading a lot of research papers. And so the thing is, my advisor is also a new assistant professor. So she just joined less than a year ago. And she's setting up the lab. So our lab is not ready for use yet. And she's also trying to figure out what her research interests are, and she's applying for grants for research projects. Both of us, and I'm her first PhD student, so both of us are trying to figure out what would be a good topic to focus on. So it involves a lot of reading. She's busy writing a lot of grants, but for me, coursework and reading, that's it.
Okay.
And I'm spending time learning some new data analysis tools, because since my lab is not ready and set up yet, we are planning to do some data science projects with water quality data. So in order to do that, I need to learn some statistical methods and learning to use Python how to do that. So I'm doing that. Those are the three things I'm doing.
PhD takes longer time, and I wanted to ask, like, as a student, you are allowed to work for a few hours, in masters. Are you allowed to work during your course of PhD? If yes, how many hours?
PhD is your on-campus job.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you are treated as an on-campus employee, a part-time employee.
Okay.
So you can't be doing anything else
Okay.
other than this.
Okay. So.
Yeah, even in your masters, you can't work off campus. So any job that you do has to be on campus and part-time.
Okay. But hours of working are same as a master student as well as a PhD student?
Yeah, technically it is the same.
Okay.
Even PhD students have a 19.99 hours per week.
20 hours,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, everybody knows that they work much longer than that.
Okay. So any...
But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
you are treated as a part-time employee.
Part-time employee. Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. This is really good information, Meghna, and I really appreciate you coming and taking your time. I wanted to ask you, is there any guidance or tips for the students who are aspiring to come here for PhD? Would you like to suggest something or give some tips to them or advise something? How should they go about it?
Definitely email the professors beforehand. So if you're planning to apply, always do this 1 year in advance. So the whole process for me between deciding to do a PhD, whether I should do it or not, finding the universities, finding the professors, reaching out to them, reaching out to their students, talking to them, getting the admit, deciding if I should go or not, it took 1.5 years.
Wow.
So you have to start way in advance. I mean, if you're already sure about what you want to do, it'll take a lot less time. But if you're someone who was like me, who was undecided, for many reasons, you may think you're not capable, or you think you won't get into the university if you apply. If you're starting at that point, then yeah, think that it'll take 1 to 1.5 years. So start much in advance. Reach out to the professors, and if they like you and if you like them and their work, they will ask you to get in touch with students who are already studying in that department, and you must reach out and talk to them and hear about what they say on how the working culture in the lab group is, and how the advisor is in their mentorship style. Do they micromanage their students, or do they give the freedom to collaborate with other people in the department? All these things are important to know. So before you start applying, reach out to the professors and make sure that they know you by name.
So how do you go about this? Because this is a little difficult, right? I mean, to find out how's the lab culture, how's the professor's working style. How do you find those things?
That's where you talk to the students.
Okay.
So I've heard stories where sometimes the professors are so hard to work with. The students actually tell them not to come to this lab.
Oh, okay. So you actually can see those professors who are the students in advance on their website or something, and then you can reach out to them?
Yeah. Okay. You can't find them on the website. You can definitely find on LinkedIn, or the professor themselves will offer for me, I asked the professor if I can talk to their students, and they only provided me their contacts. It's a very accepted practice that prospective student can ask to speak to current students.
So you can ask professor if we can connect with...
you can directly ask them.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good tip, because I don't think we are so prominent in India about this culture, right? Where we can ask professors, can I connect with your students?
I think we are trained to work in any environment, even if it's bad. But it's very tough to work for 5-6 years to dedicate your life to someone who's not a great boss.
Correct. No, I completely agree with you what you're saying. That's a good tip. A good tip. Actually, I'm motivated to apply for PhD now. But
one more person going to be sacrificed.
But thank you so much, Meghna. I really appreciate your time coming on my channel. Helping other students and guiding them through the entire masters and the PhD process. It is something that normally people do not come across, and always look forward to the guidance. And if there is something, they will come up with a question. I would definitely like to have a follow-up meeting or something with you.
Of course, yeah.
So
always happy to help.
Yeah. So you have any closing comments for the students and anything that you want to say?
I just want to mention one thing, that there is a large community of Indian students here, And LinkedIn is a very good way to reach out to these people before you end up choosing a university, because they have the most current up-to-date information. A lot of times university websites are very outdated and they don't give you the right info.
Okay.
So reach out to alumni, reach out to current students through LinkedIn and Facebook. There are a lot of university specific Facebook groups. Be active on social media. That's one tip.
But do the students respond and give the right information?
Yes.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yes.
They
Okay.
do.
Okay. That's important,
That's
because
how-
I have seen that people do not respond sometimes on LinkedIn,
A
and
lot of people, even in my job search, I reached out to a lot of Indian students on LinkedIn who were on their OPT, and they were so helpful. Like I would have 1 hour conversations with them on phone
Wow.
after their work day.
Okay.
And everyone is so helpful because they've also received similar help.
Correct.
So they want to help other students, especially in niche fields. They understand that there are not many people working,
In that field.
and it's helpful to have guidance. So everyone that I reached out to through LinkedIn has been very helpful, and they helped me get interviews. They've helped me reach out to higher ups in the company. Even Americans themselves, like I would just send out a cold email and they would respond, give me their number, call me,
Wow.
and talk to me.
Okay.
So just keep spamming people
Okay.
all the time.
Okay. So people are
On
generally
LinkedIn.
helpful and useful, and
Yeah.
that is the way people should kind of advise and choose and talk to them. Absolutely. So
Yes.
that's great information, and I'm sure people who are watching would be benefited, with this information.
Yeah.
And motivated further, how to apply and how to go further for masters or PhD. I'm sure there
I
would
hope
be
so.
more people who will be
Yeah.
now motivated to do PhD in US.
Yeah, it's free of cost, but you pay in many other ways.
Many other ways, yes. You have to dedicate a lot of your years, doing a PhD,
Yeah.
and it's a very
Yeah.
serious subject. I mean, it's like you said, you spend so much time in reading, and
Yeah.
also it's not easy. I'm pretty sure. I'm just
But if you like your area, it's the best thing you can do.
research, absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
yes, and you have all the resources that you want here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to congratulate you, that you just got engaged. Congrats to you also for securing your
Thank
admission
you.
in PhD, and you just started, this is your first semester, so wish you good luck to
Yeah.
complete that. I'm sure you would do it very soon.
Thank you.
Complete it very soon, in a few years. And thank you again for joining my channel and helping students and guiding them through the entire process. I really appreciate
My
your
pleasure.
time.
My pleasure. Please like, share, and subscribe to Stonal's YouTube channel. There's a lot of misinformation regarding many things about life in the US, and it's great that she's doing this series to kind of bust those myths. And I hope to collaborate more.
Absolutely.
And create more content on how life is like for students in the US. Especially in niche fields. So I look forward to more sessions.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Meghna.
Okay.
Then we'll see you. And thank you for your time.
Oh,
It's
it's
really
fine.
helpful.
Glad.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chalo.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care.